Uh, and yes, there's one more thing. So the session 8 recording has uploaded. I have uploaded that video on YouTube, and I have added that in the playlist. I hope you have seen that video there in the playlist. Everyone. Okay, perfect. So yeah, so what we have here, so last time we have talked about interfaces, where you have three different types of interface. We have a marker interface, we have a normal interface, and then we have a SAM interface, which is single abstract method interface, right? And then we have also seen how to use lambda expression there, this arrow. Okay, perfect. So let's continue the topic. So what we'll do now is so we have seen about this interface where you have, okay, so what we did, let me just do this one more time. Okay, so what I want to do here is we have an interface here. Okay, what I'm doing now is I'm repeating the same thing which we have done the last session, because that is very important to understand. Uh, so let me just go for a quick thing. So whenever you want to create an object of interface, what we can do is we can say pen obj equal to new pen. But then this is not possible, is because pen is an interface and we cannot instantiate interface, right? Uh, because interface don't have the implementation. Since the interface doesn't have the implementation, we cannot define methods. So we cannot create object of interface, right? Everyone, we cannot create object of interface, right? Come on, be quick. Yeah. So in order to create object of interface, we have to uh, create a class, and that class will implement the interface, and we can create the object of a class which is indirectly object of interface, right? So in order to create object of interface, we have to create a class. That class will implement the interface, and when you create object of that class, you get the object of interface as well. Yes? Are you getting what I'm trying to say here? Okay. So the problem here is, why to create a separate class only to implement this interface when you can provide the implementation here itself? So just after your constructor, give a curly brackets open and close, and in here you can mention public void and the method name, which is write. And you can pass the parameter, which is string s, and then here you can print whatever you want to do. So I mean, you can write any logic here. We can print s, right? So we are getting a string here, and then we are printing it. But then we are not calling it, right? So we'll say obj dot write. Let's call that method, and let's pass hello. So what we are doing is we are calling this method write, which is implemented here, and we are printing that s value, which is hello, right? And if you run this code, we are getting the output, which is hello here. Now question arises. Okay, so now the thing is, whenever you write pen obj, of course, on the right hand side, you'll be having new pen, right? That is something you can actually imagine. So when you know that you have, you are writing pen obj, so of course on the right hand side you'll be having new pen, and when you write new pen, for sure inside new pen we have only one method, which is public void write. Then why to mention that? So from here till this point, we can actually remove the part, or we can remove the code. And since we are removing this curly brackets, we can also remove this one. So let's remove this curly brackets, and let me remove this part. And then we have to mention that this code is a part of the method called as write. For that, we have to use an arrow which defines this code is actually a part of your method. Now, since we have only one statement, we don't need curly brackets here, so we can remove curly brackets, and we can remove this curly brackets as well. And we can write everything in one line, right? Why to write 2 lines there? And then when you know that in your write method it takes only one parameter, that is of type string, then why do I write string here? We can remove that as well. Right, and if you run this code, it still works. So you're passing hello and you're printing hello. Make sense, everyone? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. What about you, Siddharth?
Oh, yes, sir.
And so
Okay,
didn't you
Hemant?
say the brackets also we can remove from S?
Yes. So if you have only one parameter, you don't need this round brackets. You can remove that as well. What about you, Hemant? Okay, perfect. So this is how you can create object of interface using lambda expression. But then question arises: what if we have one more method here? Will it work now? Because if you have one more method, then your definition will get confused, because when you're defining this thing here, it belongs to which method? Will it work with, is it a part of write or is it a part of ABC? That's a confusion, right? And just to remove that confusion, lambda expression works with only those interfaces which has only one method. So lambda expression works with only those interfaces which has one method. Make sense? Okay, and all this and okay, so lambda expression works only with one interface, and the interface which has only one method is called as what? So the interface which has only one method is called as what? Come on, come on. We have seen that in the last session, right? So normally we have three types of interface. The first type is a marker interface. The first type is marker interface. The second type of interface is normal, and the third one is SAM. SAM stands for Single Abstract Method Interface. So any interface which has only one method, it is called as SAM interface. But then in Java 8, we got a new name for SAM interface, and that new name is called as a functional interface. So an interface which has only one method is called as a functional interface. Make sense? Okay. Now let's imagine that this is a functional interface, and then we can work with lambda expression. So let's say this interface is created by Krishna, and this object is created by Hemant. So Hemant is working on this object, and he thinks that whatever interface Krishna has created, that's a functional interface. That means we can use lambda expression. So what Hemant is trying to do here is Hemant is creating an object here using lambda expression. But then by mistake, Krishna did a mistake here. Krishna by default writes, by mistake writes two methods here. It was not intentional, but then by mistake he did write two methods there. And then Hemant is getting this error. So tell me, is it Hemant's issue or Hemant's problem or Hemant's mistake or Krishna's mistake now? This pen interface was supposed to be a functional interface, and by mistake Krishna is adding one more method there. So it is Krishna's mistake, right? And Krishna, you will know this at runtime. But then knowing something at runtime is again a big issue. It is difficult to solve that issue, right? So how about getting this? Getting to know that you have not created a functional interface, you have by mistake created a normal interface. How can you ask your compiler to let you know this? So just above your interface, just write functional interface, which specifies that your intention was to create a functional interface. And you can see now, Krishna, you're getting this error and says, invalid functional interface annotation, pen is not a functional interface. It's because we have two methods. If you remove this one method, your problem is solved. Okay?
So I have a question.
Yes, Siddharth?
So you said that if you're writing two functions in an interface, we'll get the error at the runtime. But why at runtime? You can see the red squiggly line right in front of when you are trying to compile it. Won't it be a compiler error?
Okay, so what actually I was thinking is this is another file which is created by Krishna. I mean, let's say Krishna has created this file 10 days back, and Hemant is trying to create object now. So in two different files. Yeah, this is I'm writing both this thing in one file now. So of course both will run at the same time, or both will be compiled at the same time. But just imagine this file is created by Krishna 10 days back, and Hemant is creating the object now. So Hemant will get the error, not Krishna.
Okay, okay. Oh, fine.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot to mention that point that they are creating in different files. Okay. So yeah, so everyone got the point, right? So if you're sure that you are creating a functional interface, just mention @ functional interface so that everyone knows that you are creating a functional interface there. Okay, now question arises, do we really use functional interface? Because see, when you create interface, you can create a functional interface, but in your system, you have lots of interfaces, right? So in your system, you have lots of interfaces. Do we have lots of functional interface? And the answer is yes. Most of the interface which we'll be using are functional interface. Example, when we work with threads, we'll be using a functional interface. When you work with Swing API, you will be working with functional interface. If you're working on Android, you will be using a functional interface. Okay? Okay, let's go for the next thing here. So what we're going to do now is, okay. So I have a question for everyone. Let's see who answers this. And I need an input from everyone. Can we define a method and interface? Abhishek says no. Nonit says no. Okay. Aditya says no. Okay. Let's try. Let's try. What about you, Siddharth? What do you think?
So not sure. I mean, I think yes.
Since I'm asking, it should be right. Okay. So if you read any book of Java, they all say that interface, inside interface, we cannot define a method. But then Java 8 says, Java 8 has changed the definition of interface. In Java 8, we can define a method. Example, if I say public void show, and if I try to define that, it will work. Not exactly. We are getting error there. Now, what was the issue? The issue is we can create the method there, but not public. We have to mention a keyword called default keyword. And then we can do that. And this is possible only in Java 8. If you try this in Java 7, you will get errors. Okay? So in Java 8, we can define methods. But the question arises, why on earth you want to create an interface which will have methods, right? Right, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah. So let's try to understand how that works. So let me remove this thing. Now, since okay, tell me who has created this interface?
Krishna.
Krishna, perfect. And who is creating the object here, or who is implementing that pen interface? Hemant, perfect,
Hemant.
perfect. So this interface is created 10 days or maybe 1 month ago or 1 year ago, and now Hemant is implementing it, right? So once Hemant is implemented this, or in fact not just Hemant, we have one more class here, and who is now pen. Any guess who's this guy? It's not Naveen, but it's Navneet. And Navneet is also implementing this interface, which is pen, and it is Navneet's responsibility to define that method, right? So we have two implementations for this pen now. One is in now pen, and second one is the main itself. So this is the anonymous implementation, and this is the class implementation, what you say. And then we can print. So Navneet is very rude here. He says, get lost, and whatever you want to say. So we have two implementations here. One is now pen, and second is here, right? So let's say, uh, okay. In fact, I should not go for this one now. Let's remove lambda expression for time being because we are not focusing on lambda now. We are focusing on why to define a method. So I cannot do this, right? So instead of creating object of pen, I will create object of now pen. That's possible, right, everyone? So we can create object of a class which implements a pen interface. So we have this one implementation, and let's say we have one more implementation in a different file. But just to explain this, I'm going for the same file here. And this implementation is from Aditya. We'll say Adi pen, and then we'll say Adi is very humble, so we'll say welcome, and whatever you pass there. So now we have one pen interface which has two implementation, now pen and Adi pen. The thing is, this is created on another file, and this is created on another file, and then we can create object of now pen, or we can create object of Adi pen, and everything will work fine, right? But then one day, Hemant thought, I have created one of the best interface in the world, and that interface is pen interface. Now that interface pen has only one method which is right. But let's say if you want to add one more method, so now he's thinking, using pen we can do lots of things, not just writing it. We can use pen to play pen fight. I hope you have played that game in your school or the college, where you have a bench. On the bench you used to play with pens, pen fight. I don't know if you have played those games.
Yes, sir, played.
Okay, okay. So with this pen you can have one more feature, and you can say that is a, you can play with pen. Now my question is, can we do this? Can Krishna any day he will say, okay, I want to update my interface and I will have two methods. Can you directly do it, Krishna? I mean, you can do that, but is it the right thing to do? The moment you do that, these two people are getting affected now, Aditya and Navneet, because their thing is not working. We can see that we are getting error here. We're getting error in now pen, and we're getting error at Adi pen. So tell me one thing: should we allow Krishna to do that? Come on, give me your inputs. No, right? Krishna, you should not do that. You should not add another method in the interface because others are getting affected by this. But then in Java 8, they were trying to introduce some new features in the interface itself. So there are certain frameworks like collection framework, and then some new features. So in certain frameworks, if you want to add new features, what it simply means is you have to change the existing interfaces. But the moment you change the existing interface, it will break the entire Java system. So what they did, instead of declaring the method, what if you can define the method? So it is not compulsory for nowpen and adipen to define it. And you can do that with the help of default method. If you write default void plain, everyone is happy. And you can have your own thing here. We'll say let's play. If you want to add more features to the interface, just create a default method, and no one will get affected with this. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
So in Java 8, so in fact, if you're going for the interviews and if they ask you, can we create object or can we define method in interface? The answer is not yes, the answer is not no. You have to be very specific. You have to say until Java 1.7, we cannot define the method, but in Java 1.8, we can do that. Now, why I want you to explain this is because there are some interviewers that don't even know Java 8, and they are waiting for the answer, which is no, we cannot define the method. And the moment you say yes, we can define, then you are wrong, right? So you cannot debate with them. So be very specific so that there will not be an issue on your side. So inside interface, we can declare methods and we can define methods. So this is something which is new in Java 8.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
Sir, can we have an interface that has two abstract methods?
Yes, we can. So we can say void ABC, even that will do. But then if you're declaring it, then it is compulsory for nowpen and adhipen to define it. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so we can define it. We can declare on both. Everyone got the point of interface here? So again, we'll come back to interface soon. But before continuing with interface, let me talk about one more topic today. So actually we are shifting between packages and interface concept. Okay. So what I'll be doing now is let me create one more file here, and we can have a different package, right? So this time I will go for class. I mean com dot. The class name should be okay. The package name. What I want is, let's say inside Buke, I have some specific some specific classes which belongs to some particular package. I will say test, not test but demo. So I have a different demo package here. In this, I will be writing only demo things, and we have a class here called as my class or my work. So inside this my work, I have a main method, or not a main method, but let's say public void show. I will say hi. Now my question is, can I create object of my work inside this main? Can we create object of my work inside this method main?
You have to import the package first and then you can do that.
Okay, so we have to import this package first, right? But then if I try to do that, okay, let's see what the error we are getting. So you can see the moment I write that, I'm getting an error here which says, what? It says, my work cannot be resolved. So you have to mention in which package it belongs to. So we can import the package. You can write a import statement. So whenever you want to import the package, you have to say Java dot, not Java dot, but you have to mention the entire package name, which is Java dot Telusko dot and blah blah blah. That's one way. The another way is you can import the package by simply saying control space here, and you can see you got your package there. So just after your class name, say control space, and it will import your package. That's the second way. The third way of doing this is by saying control shift O, it will import the package for you. Or not done. First you have to remove the error. We'll say equal to new my work. And you can see if I say control shift O, it will import the package. So there are multiple ways you can import the package, but then importing package is important because you are using it. And then we can say obj.show. It is that simple. If I run this code, you can see we got hi. Now what if I remove this public?
So it'll give you an error.
Okay, and we are getting error there. Can you see that? If you remove public, we cannot access that. Does it mean that this is private?
It's default.
Yes, it is default. So what happens is inside Java we have different access modifiers. Some of them are called as public, protected, default, private, and then remaining thing we'll talk about later. So we have public, protected, default, and private. So what is public? Public members can be used in the same package or in I mean it is accessible in all the packages. It doesn't matter which package you're talking about. It can be used in all the packages. You can see this file and the so left hand side and right hand side file, they both belong to different package. One belongs to com.telusko.duke and second belongs to com.telusko.duke.demo. Now since they both belong to different package, if it is public, you can use it. You can use this method anywhere. But then if you write it private, you can use this only in that particular class. You can use this, you can use this only in this particular class. Example, if you have one more class here, which is A, and in this class A, if you try to create object of, let's say if I have a constructor here, and if I try to create object of my work here, we can create object of this. We can say new my work. But then if I say obj.show, you cannot use that. So you cannot call show from here, you cannot call show from here. But yes, if you have a constructor here, if you have any method here which is public void abc, in the same class, you can call show from here. So you can call show from the same class because it is private. So private members are accessible in the same class. You cannot access private members outside the class. Make sense? So since this is private, you are getting here, you're getting error here and you're getting error here. But then if you make it public, you can use it anywhere. In the same class, in another class from the same package, and in the other package as well. But if you don't mention public, which is by default, which is not even private or not even public, so you can see you can use it in the same class, you can use it in the same package, but you cannot use in the another packages. And that's why this default is also called as package private, which means it is private for package. Got your point, everyone? Okay, then what about protected? So protected members can be used by its subclass. So even if you're going for another package, and in another package, if you're creating a class which extends my work, then you can use protected members. So if you have a method which you want that it should be accessed only from the subclass, you can make it protected. So public can be used from anywhere. Default can be used in the same package. Private can be used only in the same class. And protected can be used by any subclass. Now I have one more question. Can we make a class private?
No.
No. And if you can see, I'm getting an error here. It says illegal modifier for class A. So the only permitted modifiers for the class is public, abstract, and final. Okay.
So what is final?
Yeah, we'll talk about final. Not today, but in further sessions. Let's see if we can do that today itself. We have not talked about final yet. So it's a big topic. I will talk about that later.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, so we cannot make a class private. But then if you have a class inside a class, example, if I could say class B, now my question is, can we make this class private? Now, since this class B is a member class of A, and members can be made as private, so you can make this class private. So inner class can be private. Now again, this is one of the favorite interview questions. They ask. So if they ask you, can we make a class private? If you say no, that's the right answer. But then you have to be very specific. You have to say inner class can have a private access. Outer class cannot. So that will make more impression compared to the first answer. Okay, everyone.
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfecto. So that's what I wanted to talk about, the packages, and that's why packages are so important. You can limit the access.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, go on.
Sir, this protected, you told that we can use it in the subclass.
Yes,
Can that subclass be in some other package?
yes. Let's try. So if I say your work extends my work, and if you have a method which is public void ABC, if you want to call show, okay, now you're getting error because that is default. We have to make it protected. You can use that. You can have that in other package as well. Any other question, guys?
Sir, one more question. If we are
Yes.
using it as public, it is important to import it if you are using it in some other package.
So whenever you want to use any class which is there in other package, it's compulsory for us to import it. It doesn't matter if it's public or anything. In fact, if you want to use class A, example, if I want to use class A, you can see we'll be getting an error. If I try to import that, you can see we are not getting any class A because class A is not public. You cannot access class A, which is non-public, outside. So only public classes can be accessed from the outside packages.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other question, anyone? So some takeaway points for packages. Whenever you create a package, you have to make sure that your package name should be a reverse of your domain name, and we should always use packages. So from today, whenever you create any project or any assignment, you have to make sure that you create a project, or sorry, you create a package and put your classes in that particular package. In fact, in Spring Framework, if you want to create classes, it is compulsory for you to create packages. Otherwise, it will not work. Okay, so let's move ahead. So let me remove all these things now for time being. Okay, can you move ahead, guys? Any questions to this point? Any questions? Anyone? Okay, perfect. Yeah, so we can actually talk about final method here. We can talk about final keyword. So let's start with final keyword. So what is final keyword? So final is a keyword, and we can use final keyword in 3 places. And every time you use final with other things, the meaning will change. So you can use final with variable, we can use final with method, and we can use final with class. Let's start with variable. So if I create a final variable, sorry, if I create a variable here, if I say int I equal to 9. Now my question is, can I say I plus plus? Will it work? Can I change the value of
Yes.
a variable? Of course, right? And variables are meant for a change.
Yeah.
But then if you want to make it constant, if you don't want a variable, if you don't want that you have a value and you don't want to change the value, so in C programming, if you worked on C programming, we use a const keyword, right? In fact, in Java, we do have a const keyword. Can you see that the color has changed? We have a color which is red. So const is a keyword, but unfortunately we cannot use const keyword because that's a reserved keyword. It is there, but we cannot use it. Then question arises how to make a value constant or a variable constant. For that, you have to use a final keyword. If you make a variable final, it becomes a constant, which means you cannot change the value of it. So if you are using a variable, if you are using a final keyword with a variable, it becomes a constant. So even if you try to assign the value, you can see you will get an error. Okay, everyone. So we use a
Yes.
final keyword to make your variable constant. What about others? Stick to your keyboard. That's good. Okay. So, but then question arises, what if I don't assign the value? You can see we can change the value. I mean, we are not changing the value here. We are assigning the first value. So it becomes constant after the assignment of the, after the first assignment. So here we are not assigning any value. And the moment you assign the value, it becomes a constant. Again, you cannot say I equal to 9. Okay, so your variable becomes constant after the first initialization. So when you use final keyword with variable, it becomes a constant. Let's say we have a class here, which is class A, and we have a class B. Let's say this is not class A, this is Adi work, and this is Sid work. And let's say Adi has created a method called as public void present. And then Adi is doing some work here. Adi says work done here. Okay. Now what Sid is doing, okay, so okay, before that I have a question. A question is, can I create object of Adi work? Yes, right, we can do that. We can say Adi work, and we can say obj equal to new Adi work. And then we can say obj dot present. We can do that, right? If I run this code, it will work. If I say run, you can see we got the output as work done here. But then what Sid is doing is, Sid is actually extending Adi work, and in future, Sid is actually promoting his own product, and Sid is saying, hey, instead of creating object of Adi work, create my object. And obj dot present. Now it will also print work done here, but then for you, who is the actual, who has done the work here? If you are a main method and if you are printing something, who is which class is actually doing the work here? I mean, at least for us.
Adi.
No, for main. For main, when you're creating object of Sid work, and if you say present, for main, who is doing the work?
So that Sid is doing the work.
Yeah, so for main, Sid is doing the work, right? But the actual work is done by Adi. So Adi felt bad. I'm doing everything and Sid is taking the name. So what Adi did is, Adi said, okay, I will make this class as final. The moment you make a class final, no one else can extend your class. So in case if you want to stop the inheritance, always use a final keyword just before your class. It will make your class final, which means you cannot extend a class. Okay, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But then Sid had a talk with Adi and said, "Hey Adi, at least let's allow me to extend your class. What I will do is instead of printing work done here, you can print work done by Adi. At least don't stop the inheritance. I want to use your method, but I will use your name. So you can say work done by Adi. And Adi has some other methods as well, not just this method. Adi has some, let's say, we have some other work here. So Adi is also doing some other work here, which we are not doing anything. At the end, we are printing work done by Adi. And then that's awesome. You can see we are running this and it says work done by Adi. Okay. And not just this method, we have some other methods as well. Let's say we don't have some code here. We have some code in other methods. And not just one, we have multiple methods. And this method prints work done by Adi. Now Sid says, okay, I have convinced Adi to not to use a final class. Now I can uh, now I can fetch all the methods, right? But then the problem is what we are getting in the output is work done by Adi work. But then Sid is feeling bad there. So what Sid is doing is Sid is using all the methods, but he is overriding the method which is present, and where he is printing it is Sid's work. So he is copying all the methods from Adi and just printing Sid's work. And if I run this code, you can see we got Sid's work. I mean, Adi is doing all the work and Sid is taking the credit, right? And that's wrong. That's wrong, right, everyone? And Adi came to know about this, and Adi said, "Okay, what I will do is I will make this method." So Sid can use all the methods, but not this method. Sid cannot override this method by if you make this method as final. So if you make a method final, no one else can actually override your method. Make sense? Everyone? Okay. So we can use final keyword, or we can use final keyword at 3 places. With variable, it makes it constant. With methods, it will stop the inherit. It will stop the overriding, and with class, it will stop the inheritance. Aditya, got the point? Okay, perfect. So let me know if you have any questions till this point.
So Siddharth, I just wanted to
Yes.
share one thing. Like,
Yeah.
I'm having the subject in my this semester, so my professor is really strict about the access modifiers that I use in my coding standard. So
Yes.
what I have learned till now is that all final things should be public, and all
Yes.
attributes should be private. And then when you come to methods, they should be all, I think, public.
Yes.
in most of the cases.
Yes. So I mean, all your variables should be private because we want to use encapsulation, and all your methods should be public, except some. And yeah, so final method should be public. Perfect. Perfect. So yeah. Uh, Anything else, Sid?
No, sir, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Great. So yeah, so your variable should be private, your method should be public, but there are some methods which need to be private. If you want to have that access for that method only from that particular class, that's the only place where you can make your methods private. Otherwise, methods should be public, as you mentioned. And yes, okay, I have this question for everyone. If you make a variable private, how do you access those variables outside the class?
By using methods.
Okay, perfect. And those methods are normally called as? So in the oops term, they are called as accessors or mutators, right? Mutators. Or the spelling of mutators. Mutators. Yeah. So we call them as accessors and mutators, but then in Java world we call them as setters and getters. Okay, so we can use get and setter to assign the values. So any question with final, anyone? Okay, now I have a question for everyone. If I create a interface, which is, let's say, interface A, so my question is, can I create a variable inside interface?
Yes.
Okay, so let's do that. Let's say int I equal to 9. So I got this variable, and you can see there is no error. That means we can create the object, or we can create the variable, but how can you create object? I mean, how can you access the value? So to access that I value, what we have to do is we have to create the object of A. So we'll say A, but can we get object of A? No, we have to provide the implementation. And the awesome thing is we don't have any method there, so we don't have to provide the implementation there. And then we can say, we can print the value of I, we can say obj.I. And let's run this. And you can see we got 9. Now, if this is the case, my question is, can I change the value of I? Can I make the value variable? Can I change the value of that? Everyone's saying no. Let's do that. If I say obj.I equal to 8, you can see we are getting error. It's because by default, the variable inside interface, they are final. Even if you don't mention, they are by default final. Cool? So by default, the variable inside the interface is final. Okay, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So just give me 1 minute. Okay, perfect. So let me just remove this. So the variable inside interface is its final. Now what next? So we have talked about final, we have talked about packages, anything which is remaining a small topic so that we can continue with the bigger one now. We have talked about abstract, we have talked about interface. That sounds good. Let's go ahead now. So we are remaining with static keyword, but that we'll see once I send you the theory video of that, because I have not sent you the theory video of static. So once I've done that, we'll go for the static definitions or static keyword. Now let's start. Now let's continue with the next topic. So any question to this point, anyone?
So I have one question regarding the
Yes.
multiple inheritance
Yes.
of interfaces. For example, a
Yes.
class is implementing two interfaces, different interfaces, but the method inside each interface is the same.
Okay.
So when we are trying to call a method from the class itself, so which method will be called? I am actually a
Okay.
bit confused in that.
And you are concerned about the definition of the method, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. You're not concerned about the declaration. What I mean by that
Uh,
is, if I have if I have a class which implements two interfaces, and both this interface has the same method, which is void show.
yeah, of course, some method over writing I'm talking about. Yeah, the same signatures.
Okay. And then saying public void show, which is printing hi, right? So now the question is, if I say ab obj equal to new ab, and if I try to call show, is that your question? Which one will be called?
Yeah.
Okay, so it will be calling this method only because it always goes for the implementation. So whenever you call the method, it will be called. So the implementation will be getting called, not the declaration. So if I run this code, it will be printing hi because anyway we don't have definitions here, right? So there's no problem there. When you call it, it will be calling the implementation itself, and that's why there's no confusion that it will it call this one or will it call this one, because it is not calling the declaration. But yes, if I create the reference of interface an object of a class, in that case, we are referring to this show, but the implementation is this one. Because in case if you don't have this definite declaration here, you will get error. It says A don't know about show. So you need that you need that declaration there.
So just a while ago, you told that we can declare the method inside the interface, right?
We can define it, yes.
Yeah. So if we actually do that in both the interfaces and then see which value is
Okay.
printed, I mean,
Exactly. I was waiting for that. So what if you have a method which is defined here and will print in A? And this is the reason, why we don't have multiple inheritance in Java because of the ambiguity issue. But now what we are doing is we are creating the ambiguity issue, because when you write both the method and if both the methods are defined, if I don't have this method anyway, because we don't need that method now because we are defining it in both the classes or both the interfaces. So if you call show, it will be getting called from either here or here. And since we have the implementation at both the places, you are getting an error here. It says duplicate default methods name show with parameter are inherited. So again, this is the problem of ambiguity issue. This was the reason why Java removed multiple inheritance, and they came to the same point again. Right, Siddharth?
oh yeah, okay. Yes, sir, I'm actually also relating it to the real-time scenario that no developer will create two interfaces with the same method, I guess. I mean, there should be some difference, correct?
No, you can. If they are different, developers and they may come up with the same method name, then question arises, how can you solve that? So someone, I mean, who is creating this class, it is his responsibility to in case if you see, as a developer, if I'm creating this AB, I will know in interface A and interface B what are the methods which are defined. In case if I'm finding any ambiguity there, I will define my own method which prints hi. So if you define your own method, there is no confusion now, because whenever you call show, it will always call of hi. This in A and in B will not come into picture. So how to solve ambiguity issue here? By defining the method.
Okay.
Okay, but that was a good question, Siddharth. Everyone got the point, right? What we have discussed now? Okay, perfect. Okay, so we have discussed about this. Let me just move with the new topic now. And now let's talk about one of my favorite topic, which is arrays. So we'll go for you, Aditya. What is array?
Is it like a variable?
I have sent you the theory video of array. Is it?
I don't think
No.
so.
No, sir.
Oh,
No,
is
sir.
it? Oh, then we cannot go for array now. Hold on. What next? What is remaining now? So that we can cover that. How can I forget to send you that video? Okay, what is remaining? What is remaining? That's done. That is done. That is done. Okay, let's talk about static then, because nothing is remaining now. Okay, let's go for static, because for array I have to send you the theory video first. Okay, so let's talk about static now. So what is static keywords or static things or static methods, static variables, all those things? So what happens is Java is very powerful because Java follows a concept of object oriented. In fact, other languages they have this problem with Java, because Java supports object oriented, and that's why everyone uses Java. But then other languages they don't support object oriented concepts, right? So object oriented is very powerful, but then there are certain issues. See, every object will have its own values. Example, if I create a variable, if I create a class called as A, and if in this class A, if I create a variable called as num, every object will have its own value for num, right? If I create 5 objects, and for the first object, if the num value is 5, what will be the value for the second object? Will it be 5 or something different? Let's say if I have 2 objects of class A, and the value of first object num is 5, what about the second object? Will it be 5 or anything else?
Can be anything else.
Anything else, right? It can be 0, it can be 10. So since we have different object, every object will have its own variable num, because this num is an instance variable. So every object will have its own instance. But there are certain scenarios where all the objects need to share the same value. Example, if I have int variable here, and I want to say something common, let's say num2, and I want to make sure that this num2 will be shared with all the objects. It doesn't matter which object you have, all the objects should share the same variable. In that case, you can make it as static. Oh, what's that? I have deleted that file, is it? Yeah. So if you want to make sure that all the objects have the same value for that variable, you can make it static. It is something like, so let's say if I have my account, if I have a PayPal account, so let's say if I'm having a PayPal account, and let's say so who all are there in India now? So we have Abhishek, Krishna, and Navneet. So let's say we four, Abhishek, Navneet, and Krishna and Naveen, we four are in India now, and let's say we all have a PayPal account. Is it compulsory that we all have the same balance on the PayPal? I can have a different amount. I can have $200. Navneet can have $300, right? So everyone will have a different account balance, right? But then that will be in dollars, right? And the moment you want to transfer into your account, then you have to convert that into Indian currency, right? Which is INR. And currently the rate is 65.86, somewhere around that, right? So even if we have a different balance, that means that balance variable is instant. As the object changes, the balance will change. But the currency converter, it's same for everyone. It doesn't matter which person is transferring the money. They will both everyone will have the same currency or same currency converter. So tomorrow, if the currency converter change, if the currency, I mean the what is it? If the rate changes, it will affect everyone, right? You getting what I'm trying to say here? So we all share the currency rate variable, and we all have what difference is the balance. Let me demonstrate that here. If I say a obj equal to mu a, and let me just make it as a obj1. That's our first object, and let me assign the value. I will say obj1 dot num. I can assign the value as 5. obj1 dot num2. I will assign that value as 9. I have assigned the value for the obj1, and then I'm saying a obj2 equal to new a, and then I'm saying obj2 dot num equal to 6, and obj2 dot num2 equal to 8. Now my question is, if I print obj1 dot num1 plus a colon and obj1 dot num2, and if I say this is obj2 and this is obj2, now tell me the output, guys. What will be getting here? Be quick. So Abhishek says 5968. Okay, Abhishek. What about others? Aditya says same as Abhishek. What about you, Siddharth?
Yeah, so same, I think 5968.
Okay, 5968. Everyone's saying same. And here is the twist. Now, since static, see, now for num you are perfect because it will give you 5, it will give you 6 because those are individual objects. So num belongs to obj1 and this num belongs to obj2. But what about num2? Num2 not even belongs to object 1 or object 2, it belongs to class. So both will be sharing the same value. So when you say obj1 dot num equal to 9, so at that time the value of num2 is 9. But the moment you say obj2 dot num2 is equal to 8, it is actually changing the value of num2, which is same for both. Making sense? If I'm changing num2 value here, it will affect both the objects. And that's why you're getting 8 and 8. Right, everyone?
So can
What
you
the point?
can you repeat the reason?
Okay, so the reason is this num is a instance variable, which means every object will have its own instance variable. But num2 is not instance, it's a static variable. So all the object will share the same variable. We don't have, so it doesn't matter if you create two objects. So you can see I'm creating two objects here. So two objects will have two num variables, but two objects will have only one num2 variable, and both will share the same variable.
Okay. So I'm just actually trying to correlate it with that constant thing. I mean, so constant also we can't change the value, right? So here also static. Okay, static means that we are assigning a value to a variable only once, and that is being copied across the whole program, right?
Objects. So all the objects will share that particular value. Example, at this point, see, even if I don't assign the value for object 2, if I say comment, you can see I'm not assigning the value for obj2 num2, right? And then still I'm trying to print the value of obj2 num2. And if I run this code, at that time you will get 9. It's because this
Okay,
num2
got
is shared by all the object. Making sense?
yeah, yeah, yes.
Okay. So you can imagine this num as the balance, the PayPal balance for everyone, and this num2 is the conversion rate. So if that changes, it will affect all the objects. Yes?
So I have one very small question. I
Yeah.
don't know if it is relevant, but for example, in the main class, where in the public static void main class, we
Yes.
are declaring a static int num2 type of variable, and then inside the main class, I'm again declaring an int num2. So
Okay.
will that be a different? Both of them will be different, or both of them will be the same thing?
Both will be
And I'm
different.
assigning
Example, if
different
I say
values to.
num2 here, so this is a different this is a different
Okay.
variable, this is a different variable. This is a static variable and this is a local variable. And if you
Okay.
say num2 equal to 9 here, it has nothing to do with this num2. If you assign a value as 1 here, and if you print that num2 here, it will be 1.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's try to understand what is happening behind the scenes. In your system, you basically have different types of memory. One of the memory is your JVM, of course. Inside your JVM, we have something called as a heap memory. And so inside heap memory, you create all the objects, right? So when you create this object a obj1 equal to new a, we got this object inside heap memory where you have this num variable. You assign the value of that num variable as 5. You're creating a new object which is obj2. We got one more object inside heap memory and the value for num is 6. We don't have num2 inside heap memory. So num is getting stored inside heap memory but not num2. Then question is where num2 goes. So for num2 we have a special type of area or special memory in your system called as a method area. Inside method area you actually create static variables so that the moment you load your class, it will create static variables. Okay, let me repeat. Why we don't have num2 in the heap memory is because all the object will share it, right? So if that belongs to every object, then it will be memory. It will be a memory issue, right? Because every object have its own copy. So what we are doing is we are taking that copy from the heap memory and we are keeping that in a different area, so that all the object can share that particular variable. Make sense? Everyone?
Is it same as stack?
No, it's
We will
different.
say
It's different. It's different. It's different.
okay, okay,
Yeah. It's a different type of memory where when your class loads, so what happens is whenever you create an object, there are two steps here. First, it will first load your class. Second, it will create the object. So when you write this, when you see this highlighted line here, it is doing two things. It is first loading the class, and second, it is creating the object of it. When your class loads, it initializes all the static variables. When you create the object, it initializes all the instance variables. So static variables get initialized before instance variables. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we have one more thing here. See, why we have to use obj1 here? It's because this num belongs to an object. And since we have two different objects, it is better to use two different names. But then for num2, both the object will share the same variable, right? Then why to use object name? So whenever you use static variables, we can actually use the class name. So whenever you use static variables, we can actually use a class name. We don't need object name. It's not that we cannot use object name, but we don't need to work with object name. We can work with class name, and so it will work. So whenever you want to use static variables, you don't need object for that. You can directly use a class name. Simple?
So what if we are not initializing the static variable? Will it again give a compilation error, or
No. By
will
default, the value is
would be
0.
null?
0, 0. If I don't assign the value, you got 0.
But you can't do that with int num, right? I mean,
We
if you
can do
don't
that.
declare,
No, we can do that. If I don't assign the value for num also, it will be 0. So all the variables inside a class gets a value 0. But the local variables don't get the value. So if I say we have a local variable which is num here, and if you try to print that num, it will give you error.
oh yeah,
Local variables
okay,
don't get the default value.
okay.
Perfect. Okay, got the point, everyone? Okay. Now the way we have worked with static keyword or static variable, we can also work with static methods. So we can have static variables, or we can have static methods. Now by default, we are working with static method here, which is static void main. So what we can do here is we can say public static void demo, and we can say hi. So if your intention here is to call demo, you don't have to create the object. You can simply say a dot demo. Just mention the class name and you're done. So class name dot demo and you're done. Because static methods doesn't belong to object, and all the object will share the same method. Simple.
Yes, sir.
So whenever you want to use any static method, and you don't need object for that, you can use the class name. And that's the reason why we have a static inside we have static for main. Because main is the first point of execution, right? As you start the execution, main is the first line of execution. But if you don't write static here, what will happen is, to call main, which is not a static method now, we need object, right? But then you can create object only when you have started the execution. That means to create an object, we have to execute the code, and to execute the code, we have to call the method, and to call a method, we need to create the object. So it's a loop. Without object, you cannot call the method, and without main method, you cannot create the object. And just to break that link, or just to break that lock, they have mentioned that main will be static, so that no one needs object to call main. Making sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that was the mystery behind why main method is static. It's because we don't need object to call that. So when JVM calls main, it simply uses the class name, which is innerdemo.main. So we have some more things with static. We have a concept of static block. We have, can we use static variable inside a static method? Again, those things we'll see in the next session. So that's it from today.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir. Good night, sir.
Good night. Have a great day, Aditya,
So, thank you,
Siddharth,
sir.
and Hemant. And others, good night. Have a great sleep. Have a Java dreams.